Call the meeting to order. Shall we stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? Ready, Deb? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So roll call. Who wants to do? Joe, are you going to do that?
Toft, absent. Williams,
Here.
Slapey,
Present.
Arnie,
Here.
Trottier, Miller,
Here.
Zierden.
All right. We're going to add Ken and Eric Peterson to the agenda. So it'd be under number 5. And it's in regards to the pickleball. And that is the only other additions to the agenda. So approval of minutes next. I'm really liking the AI minutes. You guys are loving it. A lot more detail and less staff time. Yes, please.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from February 13th.
I'll second.
Okay. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Approved. All right, so we're on to our grant information and services. So would you come up, say your name and address and your position, and get ready for your PowerPoint presentation. So we may need to turn around a little bit, you guys, but you got it all if you want to review it in your email. Yes.
I'm Lori Prem from Cross Lake with Premium Grant Services, LLC. Started my own grant business a number of years ago, representing myself today. And I understand that you are looking at the DNR grant. There's a number of directions we could approach this from, but we're going to follow the PowerPoint today, and I welcome questions throughout the presentation, or if you'd like to hold questions till the end, we can do both as well. I will give you just a little bit more information on myself. Thank you for asking me to be here today, Gail.
Thank you.
Deb, you want to flip us to the next? Thank you. I've been in the grant consulting business about 7 years, just under $1 million in funding. Very, very, very close to that number. While $1 million sounds like a good number in the grant world, it's not necessarily that huge a number. If any of you have worked with, especially in a municipality setting like this, you can get into the very large grants very quickly. I've accomplished this, though, through working with local, regional, state funders. It took me a lot of grants to get to that number, which is a good thing because it's given me a very well-rounded background, learn to think on my feet, I guess, and if one thing doesn't work, you try another thing, so I feel it's a pretty strong background. I have a master's in management. I have a grant professional certification that I just achieved last year. Project management certification, which also is so helpful in the grant world, especially when you get into larger grants like this, to know how all the right steps to lead a project through from beginning to end. As I said, I live in Cross Lake with my husband, and I have a passion for grant writing. I can fly out of bed 4 o'clock in the morning and be happy to be up and working. So anyway, let's see where this goes with you folks tonight and your questions. And Deb, do you want to flip us to the next one, please? Any questions at the introductory level? Okay. So I took this screenshot that Gail sent to me just to have a rough idea of where you might land. I know this is a very tentative number. She said to use the pavement 6-quart figure. And I heard Joe, pardon me, Joe, out of the corner of my ear mention, like you said already, we have to be ADA compliant with anything new that we do. And for purposes of the DNR grant, if the new work that we're doing attaches to things that are critically related, we may have to retrofit to do some ADA compliance work there as well. So case-by-case basis, we would look at park features there. Deb? So again, there are many ways we could have approached this, but I thought, let's start with the funding piece, the money, to see, based on what I know about some of our funding opportunities here, this is one way it could play out, and it's not a bad picture. So I took that number off the first screen, you're needing to fund tentatively, more to come, as you finish your planning, $176,000. The DNR grant matches 50% of what your total project amount is, or what your total ask is to them, up to a maximum of 50% of your project cost. Then we have this lovely regional funder Sourcewell. I'm sure you're aware of them, or that your city folks next door are well aware of them, and they have come into some new contracts in the last couple of years that have greatly increased the amount of funding that they're able to give, especially to municipalities. They've got a soft spot for the cities, I believe. And so we do, depending on where you stand with any current funding with Sourcewell, we would have an opportunity that I think we could time right to get another $50,000 in then to match. The DNR grant is a matching grant, so we have to fund the other half of it ourselves. $50,000 could then come in from Sourcewell. Why does it look like the DNR, then the community match. And then, so we've got these smaller bullet points then to meet the rest of that number, which could come into your donations and fundraising, city funds on hand, park committee funds on hand. Part of that match can be done in kind labor. And believe it or not, our volunteer time in the state's eyes is worth $31.80. So, you know, we are as valuable as we feel, but it's not the minimum wage by any means. Regional funders, a national funder, boy, I have to get my own long-range glasses on here. But other opportunities. There's certainly more things we can continue to look at. Gail threw a regional grant at me. I've worked with that one before as well. There's several others that we can take a look at. So the overall funding plan, it's not written in stone, but it's looking relatively doable, I think, depending on where your coffers are standing and your ability to do additional fundraising. Now, with this all said, we know that there's a lot of interesting things happening in the news related to the grant world. Nothing of what you're touching here right now is national grant money, although sometimes even state funding is funneled through from federal. But I have talked to the folks at the state, and as of the current grant that I have open, I have Ann Raff's permission to use the term 50 Lakes. I wouldn't ever share any confidential information, but I have successfully won the grant for them. And she says anything that can help Breezy Point is fine to mention. You know, I wouldn't go into anything confidential, but just to drop their name, checked with them about that, and there weren't, for their funding, any national funds coming through at that point. So I do have an email into the state DNR contact asking if she sees any changes coming down the road as a result of executive orders or anything on that political horizon, and I have not heard back yet. I think it's a fair question of Sourcewell also that I have not posed yet. So, but just to give you, I've gone to so many seminars lately about the uncertainties with the funding world nowadays, and the advice I got as recently as a seminar I was in today is keep moving forward as though nothing's going to change. If you haven't heard that your grants will be adversely affected, then keep moving forward. I think that's what we'll do here. Any questions on that yet? Okay, Deb, please. So, team composition is what I chose to present next, because writing a grant can't be done in a vacuum. Whether you choose me or choose someone else to write this grant for you, you can't just say, now we've got a grant writer in place and now we're going to walk away. There is so much work to be done to write a grant of this nature. And I'm sure you've all looked at the Pequot sample that was attached. I mean, the one I wrote wasn't quite that long, but it was close. And you can just see all of the various studies that need to be done. A lot of that is led by the grant writer, but there are so many other things that need to be in place. I always look at especially a larger grant like this, as having at least two major components. And one is the project plan, the actual project you're going to build. I can chase grant money all day long for you, but if you don't have a solid plan in place and have a project team ready to get it activated, to get all your vendors in place in the right timeline and get the estimates, and the DNR grant is requiring a lot of very specific written plans in a precise manner. And if you don't have them right, they'll kick it back and make you redo them. So there's a lot of folks that need to be involved. There's the planner and the project manager from the city. I understand Joe will probably be playing a key role in summer all of that. The business contact, there's going to be some financial things that will need to be included. I always say there's really not a lot of secrets between a grant writer and her client, because by the time I get done pulling the information from you that you need for the grant, pretty much. But you are a public entity anyway, so transparency is important anyway, and we expect that. They are very big on the maps that are created. So I have a person that I'm recommending there just because we've had great luck. Also in the 50 Lakes grant, but also personally, he's done some personal real estate work for me, and it's just been great. Really quick thinker, quick on his feet, can turn things quickly. Again, they have very precise requirements for their maps at various levels. The vendors need to provide plans and estimates. This is a key thing about the DNR grant. Their work needs to be priced at a prevailing wage rate, not just minimum wage. They may think you're doing you a favor by providing as low a cost labor as they can to do your work for you. But part of what the DNR, as part of the overall government, is trying to do, I guess, is ensure that the workers who are doing the work for you are paid fairly. So they have what's called a prevailing wage. I am not an expert on that, but any vendors that you're working with should understand or be able to do the research to find out what their work should be estimated to you using prevailing wages. So that'll bring your costs up from any estimates that maybe you've even already received. So that comes to the grant writer piece of the team. Somebody who could maybe lead you through it if you haven't been through this before. And I guess that's a question I have for you. We'll come back to that in a minute. We have another lovely opportunity with Sourcewell right now. It's almost too good to be true, but it's been true for the past couple of years. And we should check. When I was at a seminar in December, Sourcewell said that they expected that they would be able to offer this grant again next year. And that is to pay for third parties who you can hire to do work like grant writing. So right now, all of the folks that I work with are under contract with Sourcewell. We do an estimate up front and say, we think this is what the grant is going to cost. They pre-approve it, and then we go through the year, and I do the work, I bill you, you pay me, and then at the end of that year, Sourcewell pays you 100% of my fees back. I think that they would probably cover the maps piece of it as well. And there may be other people that we need to hire as we go through the process that we should again, good reason to be starting early to think through all of these needs, and then we can tee that up with Sourcewell. By July 1st, I believe, is when that grant period opens. And then the post-award part of the team, and there's more than just post-award, it's during the whole process too. There's a reimbursement manual that the DNR will provide to you, telling you exactly how to request your payments. This is a grant that doesn't fund you up front. They'll give you a credit in the Minnesota SWIFT system, which is their money transfer vehicle. I'm sure your city is signed up with SWIFT already. And the person in charge of submitting for payments would lump them into 4 sets. You'd probably save the last one till the end until you've got everything that you know that you're going to have to be submitting for payment for, and then do that toward the end. But in 4 sets, you can submit to the state, and they will send you payments through the SWIFT system then into your account. That's how it's paid. So you have to prove to them through invoices, canceled checks, whatever the reimbursement manual says, that you've paid that money, and they will reimburse you then from the grant that's sitting as a credit to you in SWIFT. And there may be some other team members we have to pull in along the way as well, but it's definitely a group, which is so neat that you're starting early. Again, I applaud you for that. When Gail and I first talked, it would have been too late. Even though the deadline isn't until the end of March, you can see as we look at the Pequot grant that there's some very complex wildlife bird studies, archaeological studies, and some of those literally take weeks in and of themselves to come back. So to speed this up, and the level of plans that you have ready may not have been quite where they needed to be either. So it seems like a long time to wait to do the majority of the build in 2026, but that's the timeline that we're looking at now with this timing. Deb?
The other thing was City Hall too, and all the other things going on. We need to get that done and clear before we move on.
Yeah. Probably seems like a little more graceful approach. So the eligibility, I'm going to come a little closer to see my own notes here.
Do you want to take this copy?
I've got a copy, actually. I think we'll do fine here.
Okay.
There's a lot of words here, but there's only a couple that count here. The eligibility for Minnesota municipalities. There are a number of larger components that this grant needs to have. They aren't going to let you take a grant of this magnitude and just build a little sidewalk from point A to point B. They want something big to show for their money. And in your instance, the one that fits, if we're looking mainly at pickleball courts, will be the sports fields and courts. But so you have to have at least one of those big ones, but then you can come in with smaller items like the sidewalks and all the other peripheral items. There are eligible items and ineligible items, and those are very clearly laid out. And if there's any gray area, that we have DNR contacts to go to and ask about that. So the application should be worked mid-2025 through March 2026. The grant writing can begin. I mean, that's something we can talk about. You know, I don't even know if we are the ones who will be working together for sure. This is really an educational seminar for you tonight to let you know about the grant. But if in fact we were to work together, you'd probably want to have the majority of the work after July 1st when Sourcewell could then start reimbursing. Although some work ahead of time, you know, we could talk about that. But that should be a very adequate time to write the grant. As long as we know that the project management and the planning, the maps, and all those things are happening along the way, they can kind of come together at the end. I highly recommend, frankly would insist, that we submit a month early, in the end of February, because they have given us the grace to give them, it has to be virtually 100% complete. You have to, it's at the point where if you waited to the end of the March, you'd be submitting the same thing, but you do it a month early, and then they tell you what they'd like to see improved. And that is just really a godsend, because we found on the one we didn't have a lot of things to fix, but I was very grateful that we were able to fix what we did. And when we submitted it, we won it. So I think that people who don't take advantage of that early review are kind of, this is a competitive grant, you know, and you have to give yourself every edge to win. So, and I think that's a big one. I've already mentioned that there's several studies of wildlife, the bird, the archaeological. It can delay timing So, and there's also, I found, a precise point in time when it needs to be done. You can't just go in early, because then part of it can expire. So that's one of the tricky components of this. You have to really watch your timing. I almost missed it by a day, but I didn't miss it, so lessons learned. Then the award will be announced July 2026, and the grant period will begin fall of 2026, which is interesting. It could happen as early as September. You know, we say that the majority of the work needs to happen the summer of 20, pardon me, let me look at my own notes here again.
27.
Yeah, the
summer
majority of
for
the work is done
2027.
summer 2027, but the nice thing, if we have a nice fall, depending on what's in your project plan, is there some trees we can take out? Is there some excavation that we can do? Because you cannot lift a finger to do the work on this grant until the grant period starts. And that will be late fall in 2026. They will not pay for any work that's been completed. And we need to have good integrity with that. But there are things that can be done in a good late fall, even here in Minnesota. And then plan to start right away the next spring. That's why project management, timelines, tasks, vendor schedules are all very important. The project side of it, like I talked about, not necessarily the grant side. Because once you win the grant, you need to push it through to get your work done by June 2028 is going to be the end of the work period. So, any questions so far on that? Okay, Deb. There are hundreds of pages that govern, of informational text that govern this grant. But I picked out a few that I thought you might find interesting and that you should be ready for. The public should be involved to give input. They must be involved. Need to hold meetings, part of the normal council meetings, park meetings, however you do it. And notify folks ahead of time that you're going to be talking about this project, this potentially the grants that you're seeking. And give the public ability to give feedback, and we need to document that. We need to provide that with the grant. The city council and the park board or the park board, however you're structured, I'm not sure how that all works yet, must sign agreement to seeking the grant and to all plans that are being submitted with the grant. Be full agreement. All park projects must be maintained for outdoor recreation into perpetuity, which is kind of interesting. And they enforce that by having you record a deed restriction to the county before they will do the final, I think if awarded and before the final payment, I believe that needs to be done. So the DNR is in the business of keeping these parks that they're funding as parks forever. They don't want it to be a temporary thing that now we're going to tear down the courts in a couple of years and put in something else. They want it to remain parkland. And I've mentioned a couple times, strong project management will be required for the success of the overall project. Financial management is important. You know, these are relatively big funds. You want them to be tracked separately, carefully. Cities are subject to audit, so you're going to want this to be very clean and able to be presented to your auditors and whatever need that they have. And then once again, a firm timeline will be needed for the grant, so we really have to think things through ahead of time. Yep. Oh, another big list. Just a sampling of items needed from the team. And you will have seen this played out in the Pequot application, but written plans with diagrams to their specifications and related narratives, drawings and artistic renderings of all components. They even have a methodology that they want you to show the thickness of a sidewalk or an asphalt trail. They really make you think it through well. written plans for walkways, thicknesses, as I mentioned, firm cost estimates for each component with estimates of prevailing wage rate. They want photographs of the proposed site. Probably best to have no snow cover, but I think we're fine on that now. Oh, there may be some snow coming again, but I don't think it will last long. And we're not to that point yet anyway. Multiple aerial maps from several perspectives, as we've talked about, a wetland study, if applicable, the wildlife, the bird, the archaeological studies that I've brought up a couple times. There's a couple of new ones that came in this past year. I do have notes on them, but I don't have them in the presentation. A couple of years ago, they didn't even have this level of study. So the applications were simpler, but now each one of these studies has a multiple page output, and they all need to be included in the application. We may not need permits actually approved for the application, but we need to understand what the need for permits will be and ensure that there won't be any hindrances, that all parties who would need to agree to the permits are going to be willing to do so. We don't want any surprises of that nature that would slow down the process, because once you start marching toward that March 31st grant submission date, you want it to go pretty smoothly. And the DNR says right out, they want the project virtually shovel ready to go. And kind of the neat thing about their grant process is, as precise as it is, it does force you to think through almost every detail and be fully ready to build. So they almost provide a project management template for you, which has been interesting to go through, and a good thing. Deb? Are we done? That is it. Okay. So, yeah, thank you, Deb, for helping me with that.
Thank you.
So, I'm wide open. Any questions? If I don't know an answer, I'll research it and get back to you.
I have a question about the public meetings.
Yes.
So if we hired you for the grant writing, would that be something like you would attend to answer that end of, like, public maybe questions about the specific grant things?
I would absolutely be
Okay.
willing and able to do that, yep. Yeah, I'd want to be your partner all the way through, because it really is a consulting role as well as a writing role to work everyone through the process. But, you have some fun along the way, too. It's not just all work.
Yes.
And what a great thing that you're doing at the end of it, to have a celebration of some beautiful new courts out there. It's worthwhile work. And we even have a representative of the
Yes.
youth population.
Right.
Who will be a future pickleball player here with us tonight. Thank you for coming. I bet you didn't have a choice, right?
Well, Lori, yes, thank you so much. She put all this together for us. There's a lot to look at for down the road, but it's all there, and we have it in our reach now if we need it. Lori did this part all pro bono, and because she has a soft spot, she said, for Breezy.
I used to live here.
She used to live
for a
here,
number of
so
years,
she put a lot more together than I was expecting, and it's really great. Thank you so much.
I have some more frequently asked questions and some more tips, and I'll just hand them to you, Gail, and you
Okay.
can read them and let me know later if you have any questions.
So from your viewpoint, our next steps are, as I understand it, getting the map going and getting the contract for you approved so you can start putting the pieces together.
Those would be a couple of the key things.
Okay.
I think that even before the maps, and maybe you understand this, and maybe this is a joke question. Really, I guess, let me turn that back to you folks. Where are you in the process? We didn't have a lot of conversation about this, Gail.
This is
You know.
just the start.
Okay,
We just
okay.
started. Literally,
So you
this
got
is,
quite a bit of land back there. I drive by here, several times a week, and now I'm looking in the back field because I have a new perspective on, hey, where are those courts going to go? So,
We do have a potential site identified.
Yeah,
Okay.
we
And-
did
yep,
choose.
And that, you know, that we think, you know, and Joe's done a lot of
Yeah,
figuring what courts would fit in there, and that there's some potential for future expansion of it in that space.
okay,
So it's kind of back off behind the garden area more.
okay.
So, you know, that's kind of, and we're definitely, I think, all in agreement that we're excited about going for it. So we think this would be a really great addition to our parks.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and Joe's done a lot of work with, you know, those initial estimates and,
Okay.
and kind of looking at that. So kind of a decision of how many courts we'd want to move ahead with to start, and, yeah.
Let's go outside that box for just a minute. If you really want a first step, what I think I would do if I were in your shoes, and maybe you've done this unofficially already, I'd look at every bit of land that you have for park back here, every bit of it. And I don't know if you need to work for a term with a long-term park planner, or maybe between all of you, you've got the background and the know-how to do that yourselves. Take a look at every acre you've got back there and say, what's our long-term plan for this? Where do we really want to go with this? There's quite a bit of land back there that doesn't have anything on it. And maybe the city's got a plan, or maybe you have a plan. I'd have fun putting on some boots and walking back there someday too, and just kind of, before, you know, if we move forward on this together, I just want to have a visual in my mind too about where things are. But I would, you know, what's the comprehensive park plan, I guess? I would take a look at that to some degree before you moved forward just with the courts. Because here's a piece of advice I got about the DNR grant. Because it is such a comprehensive grant to write and will take a fair amount of time and money to write it, put as many things in there as make sense for you to do right now, so that you're not going back to the well and back to the well to get more money. I spoke to another, I'll just say another local park person who won a grant a few years ago, and his advice was put as many things in there as you can. I read your little overview about, you know, where the overflow parking would go and so forth. You can even do some parking lot work with this grant. It can only be 40-some%, I believe, of the overall grant amount, because they don't want to put all their money just into parking lots. But again, to reach your ADA, when they come in and park, are they able to go all the way from the parking lot to the courts and be ADA compliant? You know, I would take a real global look at things. And in fact, of the area you want to improve, when you get into some of your maps, you're going to have to probably say, this area is unimproved right now. We want to leave it unimproved for now. I don't know, draw out the whole box of where you want things, and then decide which pieces you're going to color in now with this first grant, so to speak. That's where I would go with the first step. Really understand what you want to do back there with every acre you've got to your avail.
You're right on. I mean, 100%. We have our master plan, and we have kind of decided, since City Hall was approved and is getting upgraded, that we're going to make this park our first priority from the other parks. And so we do need to get mapped. We do need to, and we've been talking about that. So this might be this is the perfect opportunity to, and since we have time,
You've got time.
We-
That's the beauty of this.
yeah, this
It
is
would have been
perfect.
wrong to rush you through this on so many levels.
It would
You can
never
really
have.
do this right, and you
It-
can have
it would
a
never
plan
have
for the
flown,
park
I
committee
guarantee.
for years to come.
Yeah.
For Breezy.
Yep.
Now, and get the first piece funded and get a trust level built with DNR. I have to talk to you too about the risk of this. We could go through all of this and not win the grant. It is a competitive grant. I didn't want to forget to say that. We can put our absolute best foot forward, but there could be other people that they have to, you know, the committee that reviews will put ahead of us through no fault of our own. There's a lot of things that are out of our hands when
Good to
we
know.
apply grant. That's global to the grant world. You've run into that?
No, I have a question for you,
Yes,
if
sir.
you don't mind.
No,
Very
please.
comprehensive, loved your presentation, an eye-opener for sure. If I understand everything, and for clarity, a shovel would not be put in the ground for construction until the summer of 2027, is that correct?
If there is meaningful work that you can do from late 2026, when the grant period starts, you can put a shovel in the ground, absolutely.
Okay, so.
But I know just the nature of courts, I know Nate, and you're working with Nate
Right.
at, yeah. There's a window of time when you don't want to put any asphalt down
Right.
or any courts down, and that window approaches winter a little ways out, so depends upon your timeline.
So the second question that relates to that, could it be done in piecemeal? In other words, if they have X amount of dollars in their budget and some citizens and businesses get together and they put, let's say they raise 200,000 with outside the grant money, and I believe it's very doable.
Wow.
If they do that, would they then be able to add and go to DNR for trail grants and/or parking lot grants or something that would enhance the whole park, enhance the whole thing?
I believe the answer to that would be yes. It would allow you to build more. Again, start with trying to understand what you want from short-term to long-term. And because you have to be able to apply for the meaningful construction pieces, but if you've raised more money, that means you've got more match, and you can ask the DNR for more money, but you have to have a plan to spend that money before we move forward with the
I have
grant.
a quick question.
Yeah,
Yep.
no, that's great.
My question is it yeah, I guess I'm maybe being naive, but is it possible to do this without I don't want to say hoop jumping of DNR, but
Absolutely. If you got a gentleman
I
here
mean,
saying you can raise
That's what we'll hear
200,000,
right after this?
okay,
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
And like he said, it won't cover maybe all of it, but then we can get the parking lot and some more sidewalks or whatever,
Yeah.
maybe the bathroom.
Traditionally that, we've had, sorry, I didn't put this on. We've had good experience with DNR, like with the fishing pier. And so we have some pieces in place. We've gotten a school grant through the DNR recently for archery equipment. And so I think, and that's within Breezy Point.
Good.
So I think that historically we have that good relationship built so far, and it'd be great to be able to continue with that, so.
There is a minimum amount too for the DNR grant, so I think I'd have to look up, I think it might be a $50,000 project minimum, and then you would be requesting 25. They won't grant anything less than 25. I'd have to check my guidelines, but that's close to the number. So again, they don't want to be dealing with a lot of real small things, so.
Question? When is it appropriate to have meetings with open to the public meetings?
I would say you would want your plan firmed up, your global plan, so that you are showing them something concrete. You will maybe have had a decision, you've done some good homework already on the court piece. And then, plot that piece on the global plan to say, here's the piece we want to do now. So then they have a concrete item to respond to. And you could tell them this is how we're planning to fund it, see where we're at with the fundraising by then. And you know what? You won't hurt my feelings if you don't need me to write the DNR grant. I like to do this type of thing, and I'm happy to have even gotten you to this point. So, yes, sir.
Now, I certainly didn't mean to do anything that would insinuate bypassing you. I
get it.
I
get it.
I have a hurry-up offense.
Nobody likes to wait.
And I'm just seeing that there's a lot of necessary hoops to jump through in order to bring the DNR in.
Right.
And so
There is.
based on other communities, and I'll give you an example, and I don't know the exact details on it. Walker built 8 courts. When they made the decision to do it, they raised $175,000 in 30 days.
It's amazing what you can raise
So the
quickly.
reason why
Yeah.
I asked about the DNR and some of these grants, it's very complicated. It's way beyond my pay grade. And you are instrumental in moving this into a bigger capacity. So and I'm not even involved with Breezy Point, I've just kind of been talking to them a little bit and helping them with this. But I'm very impressed by your talk.
Oh, thank you.
Your professionalism. And those that know me, they know that my goal is to help get this done, serve the community as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
But then the bigger picture is, how can we bring you in and make it even a better, more world-class facility with the help of the DNR, with the help of Sourcewell? And look at that 3 years down the road and have a magnificent world-class park
Yeah.
that could be utilized before my 80th birthday.
All right, since
We'll hold
this,
your party there.
2 weeks.
this seems like a good time to transition, and Lori, can you stay if we do have to come back for other questions?
Absolutely. I was going to ask you,
Okay.
when you want me to step out, just let me know, but
No, you don't need to.
I like this stuff. I'm happy to stay. So
Okay.
you want me to stay on a mic?
No, we're going to have Ken or Eric come up. Ken, please. All right, so this seems like a good time to switch over, and then,
Can I
oh,
ask her a
one more question? Yeah, sure.
Now, you're suggesting a map-type plan with all things we may envision in the future in that area. They could be blocked in, but not even planned for, but the space is set aside for things?
Yeah, the
So-
DNR is going to want that,
we're-
actually.
We're going to need a pretty skilled park planner person. I don't know that I don't feel that I have enough knowledge to take this massive area and lay out what's appropriate for each part or what we may want. So we have to have a pretty darn clear idea of what we may want one day so that we don't build this and say, oh God, we put it right where we need to do such and such, and now we're messed up.
That's partly why you want to look at that comprehensive view.
Is it best to hire a park planner, a park advisor type person, or where?
Well, now you're getting.
Is Jerry,
Diane, I can answer that question.
okay.
Okay.
Most cities use their engineering firm. So
Woodseth.
Woodseth is our engineering firm. Nisswa use Woodseth. That's kind of, we got as far as city staff are going to get you. The next step costs money, and they have the the Pequot application, Woodseth pretty much did everything start to finish, so.
Yeah, that was done by the Woodseth grant writer as well, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yep, they have on-staff grant writers.
Yep.
That's who we've used in the past, so.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's an option for you too, and you should maybe look at that, as you're looking at various options to get this done. Again, you're not going to hurt my feelings if you need to do the best thing for the city, but as far as, and the Woodseth is, yeah, you're spot on, and I wouldn't ever refute that, but this map gentleman can also do quite a bit. He doesn't just build maps at our direction. I mean, when I mentioned that he had worked for us personally, and I did a PID split of a couple of properties that we had, and he does that level of work as well. We'll do a county approved level of. He's not a surveyor, but he does an output that's almost that precise. So I think there's resources to do that relatively cost efficiently. And I also want to say, you could probably challenge me on that, or it's something that I could go to the DNR and ask and say, hey, Breezy Point is this many acres, and they want to put their courts right here. How much more do you really want them to be able to tell you they're going to do with the rest of the land? I said there'd be things tonight that I couldn't maybe answer. That would be my best advice, but whether the DNR is going to require, I think they might, but I can check on that. So, and I also do love the idea of thinking big. Maybe you want to take this thing further than the little court diagram you gave me, Gail, by the time you get done thinking it through. Okay, enough said. Any more questions? Okay. Thank you. Welcome. Do you want me to clip it on you?
Sure. I need help.
There you
Hi there.
Hello.
So what would you like from me? Gail invited me. I'm Ken Peterson. I'm not related to Eric, but we are pickleball friends. And that's one of the things I'll probably talk about. My wife Cammie's back here as well. And Dave Spizos from the resort is also here. They have their pickleball ideas as well.
Could you speak up, please?
I don't, if the mic's not
Turn
turned
up
the
that
right way,
mic.
maybe? Okay. Okay, great.
I used to work with Deb long ago as well. I know everybody in here.
Yeah.
It's crazy. So yes, thought I was going to kind of come here and just kind of encourage you in your quest. I can see you're very, very early, very enthusiastic. I don't need to encourage you about anything really. You talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars and grants and plans, which is all great. I don't know if you have any questions for me. Any of you play pickleball, by the way? Excellent. The rest of you will be. That's how it goes. And I guess the main thing that I've learned in the past few years, I started playing pickleball in 2016. I was a lifelong tennis coach at Anoka High School and Blaine High Schools and such, and a teacher, of course, too.
Well, you should say your full name and your address, too.
My address?
Yeah.
Would you like my Breezy Point address?
Yeah,
Or my...
your Breezy Point.
Yes, we're in Delaware Acres, Lisadale Lane in Breezy Point, right down there. We built our place, our cabin there in 2007? Yeah. 2007 and such, and Cammie's family is the Keene family. We've been up here since the 1960s, Bob Keene and that whole family. So she's a lifelong Breezy person, literally lifelong Breezy person and such. So I was brought into the fold in 1999. So a lot of contacts up here, spent a lot of time up here. I think we can tell you the one best thing we ever did at our cabin was 2 years ago we put in a pickleball court at our cabin. And the reason I say that is you say go to the cabin, you play with your family, but none of our family wanted to play pickleball until we built that. Now, nieces, nephews, grandchildren, our kids, every day we're out there in the morning playing with each other and communicating and socializing, talking to your kids. They're not on their phones. It's really interesting. I was taking hold of them, and we have so much fun every morning, every evening. It's become a real spot. And what you're going to have with this, times 6 or more, because what it'll do for your community, place to recreate and so on, but it'll build you a community. Cross Lake, have any of you ever played over there? Mm-hmm. Every day you go over there, 60, 50, 40 people building more courts. Mm-hmm. We've met some of our best friends ever playing pickleball at Cross Lake. And so Dick and Sherry Burns, for example, who are residents and such. So you're going to start playing with your friends and neighbors who you waved at on the street or never met, and suddenly you're going to meet them and be there several times a week with them and become friends with them. And your voters, you're going to be with your community. So it's going to be a really unifying force for your community and spread your friendship field and people you know in the community and beyond what you ever would think, believe me. I played tennis for like 50-some years. I have a few tennis friends. I have some golf buddies. I have hundreds and hundreds of pickleball friends, literally, all over the country where I played pickleball. Yes, it's been amazing. My wife Cammie became a player, and she can, reluctantly at first, but now she's whole hog. It was her idea to put the court in our backyard, so that tells you how much she was into it. So I'm just really pushing you to really keep the fight going. You're real early. You have a lot of work potentially to do, and I admire you for that. Down the road, if fundraising comes up in the coming months or years, Eric knows, I know some people in the area who would help. And when you get to that point, you're long away from that, but who knows what can happen. So that's the other, you notice David's here back here. Just to let you know, Cam and I have been talking with him and Bob about the possibility of an indoor facility by the hockey rink and by North Star. And that will help your community economically and such. Again, you won't believe. People will come from, Walker just spent for 8 courts, outside courts, $200,000, whatever. In the winter, you think they want to play? They'll be coming down here and spending money down here. Same with Crosby, huge community. Brainerd, of course, with Eric. So Cross Lakes, say no more. tons of money for more courts, they're all in. But in the winter, nobody over there can play. They have that little tiny gym. Terrible. They would fill over here in a minute, the year-rounders. So that's my encouragement for you. I don't know if you have any questions. I've been teaching pickleball for a while now, since they took me out of retirement. My youngest son is now a pickleball instructor, and
Wow.
it just takes care of your family in such a positive way.
Well, one thing that was talked about was maintenance, maintaining, and our plan to maintain. And what I've heard, and I think Eric told us the first, when he came here to get us all excited the first time, that tournaments are good fundraisers
Sure, charity events.
and charity
Yeah,
events.
come out and play and donate to such and such, whatever it might be. Yeah, it's a great fundraising thing, because you can, when you have a tournament or an event, you can time play. Pickleball is very predictable in that most games last 15 minutes or so. Or you can set the time. You can play 10-minute games, whatever. And you have people rotate in, mixing and socializing, whatever else you have up there. They're much easier to manage than almost any other kind of tournament. Golf, everybody's spread out everywhere. Everybody's right here.
So the people who raised all that money, how did they do it?
That I don't know.
So maybe we'll have you explain it. Is it through a 501(c)(3)? How did they do it? Because I know they have the PAL Foundation in Cross Lake. We know that. Yeah. So if we're done with Ken, then maybe Eric,
Need any more encouragement from me?
then maybe we go to the other Peterson.
Yes, I wish I could say he was older, but he's not.
Yeah. How old are you? I just turned 73, so.
Oh, you're much younger.
Yeah, I'm getting up there. Anyhow, funny, my father's name was Ken Peterson. And the other interesting thing is I met this Ken Peterson and Cammie at Cross Lake on the pickleball courts. And as we chatted about all this, he said, "You've got a tennis background." I said, "Yeah, I played tennis at Wayzata Country Club." That was my introduction. And he goes, "When?" And I told him, he goes, "Who was your instructor?" I go, "David Yorks." And he goes, "I applied for that job, and that son of a gun got it instead of him." So we go back to, when I was 15, 16 years old. Anyhow, so as far as Walker, the interesting thing is in the pickleball community, every association is extremely willing to provide information on what they did. It's not like it's a secret. And we're going through this process in Brainerd right now. We did set up an LLC, and then we went through the process of a 501(c)(3), and we're working with the city of Brainerd. We've met with the Recs director, we've met with the mayor, we've met with the public service director that just moved from Vegas and was instrumental in putting in, 60, 70, 80 courts there, and now hosting some of the biggest tournaments in the United States. Wow. And Brainerd really wants to get courts put in. They have $0 in their budget, and so I don't think I'm speaking out of school or doing anything that would undermine our relationship with Brainerd. They really believe that they could maybe get courts put in on their own in 10 years. Well, once again, I don't want to celebrate, my 90th birthday on their new courts. And I've always believed there's two ways you get to the top of an oak tree. You can bury an acorn and sit on it and wait, or you can figure out how to climb it. So with Brainerd, we have taken the initiative, and with their blessing. So for us, Brainerd has Gregory Park. They've got 2 very nice tennis courts. They've got 3 very old tennis courts that really need, in order for safety, liability exposure, they need to be redone. So we looked at that. We've measured it. We've had Nate from Outdoor Specialties come in, look at the concrete surface, and for us, we're looking at approximately $120,000 to repurpose those courts, put in the proper fencing, put in a gathering area, and that's our goal. We're waiting for a written memorandum, and this is going to also maybe answer your question about maintenance. And so we're waiting for the written memorandum from the city that we've got the go-ahead, and we're hoping to get that any day. Once that starts, we're gonna start our fundraising. And we know we've got several individuals that would donate a pretty good amount of money. We also are going to deal with Sourcewell and deal with Essentia, because we've got people involved from Essentia that are playing pickleball, and they say, you know, come to us. And our goal is to get these courts done this summer. Maybe have them usable by August. We are highly motivated. We're in an organized group, and the one thing we've done with the city is that we've asked if we're going to do all the fundraising, then we would like to have a relationship that is going to serve both of us. And that relationship is that we will create a membership-driven pickleball club. Membership is not going to be high. It's going to be maybe $30 for the entire year. And with that, we are going to pull in the money for the maintenance, for nets, for windscreens, for that type of thing. For that, we would like to have the courts designated for membership drop-in from 8 o'clock until noon. Now, we're inclusive. It doesn't mean that if somebody comes in, they're not a member, that they're going to be excluded. It just means that we're going to do our best to explain to that individual, bring them in, welcoming arms, and say, you know, we've created a membership program here for play Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, 8 to noon. Anybody, everybody, of course, is welcome, but that's where we definitely have the courts for our use. The other thing we like is those courts are lit. So the younger generation, a few of them said, well, wait a minute, now you old guys, that's great for you to have that time during the morning. I go, lights are going to be available until 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock at night. So even those of you that you're working, 8 courts is definitely going to serve the community. So I think the other question is, you know, how do you pay for the maintenance? Maintenance on 68 courts is about $5,000 a year. So we're going to work with the city to do that. Our agreement with them, I think, is going to be a 10-year agreement. It's going to have a little bit of a sunset to it, which we feel is very reasonable. Our goal is to use that and then to move it into working with Baxter and putting courts in Baxter. And really, our goal is to, you know, do what we can to provide the best environment for multi-generations to get together. Ken, you said it very well. It's very unique in that 4 generations are playing together. They're bringing the blankets, they're bringing the toys, they're bringing the coloring books, they're bringing food, and they're making it a family event, not a one-month event, but multiple times. One of the biggest challenges we face is that with Lauren Thompson, which is in Baxter, we worked with the city council for 3 years to get 2 dedicated courts put in and to repaint 1 tennis court so it would serve as a tennis court and 2 pickleball courts. The tennis net is always up, and you can use each pickleball court if you bring in a portable net. You know what the biggest challenge is? If you go there at 4 o'clock, you're not going to be able to play because all the courts are taken and people are standing around and they want to play. And so we know that this is not, this is Field of Dreams. If you build it, they will come. It's not a roulette wheel, it's not a roll of the dice, it's not anything other than, this is still the fastest growing sport in the world because I think it's all inclusive, I think it's very social, and you're definitely doing the right thing. And I think you will be applauded. People will thank you over and over again for what you've done with the community. So our fundraising, we're kind of like these wild stallions, and you know, Lori, somebody like you, you're the harness, you're the reins that provide the direction. Does that make you know what I mean?
I know exactly what you're saying.
Yeah, and so we're going in with eyes wide open, but I know that we will work it out, and we're driven. We don't have time to wait for the DNR grants. Not that that's bad, but we definitely want to get this done this summer. So I'm not answering your question on exactly who, how, but I just believe you say yes and then you figure it out. You say yes and then you figure it out. And for you, it's your timeline. I know you've got some money in the budget right now. Can you work with Lori, get some things put in place this summer, and then really add to it and build a monument over the next 2 or 3 years to the decisions you make in the next couple of weeks? So, I don't know if that helps at all. I just, whatever I know, whatever I find out, as we go down this road that we've not been down, as I go down it, all that information is available to you. But I do know you have a driven individual, driven couple here, Dick and Sherry Burns, you know them, they're driven to get this done. I'll tell you what, I get a text from him about every third day. Eric, this is what you gotta tell him. Is that the truth?
Yes, I've got a few of those.
Yeah. This is, are you going to the meeting? Yeah, well, if you don't, I'm gonna kill you. And, so, yeah, he's probably, anyhow, but that's good for you. And he knows a lot of people. He's a businessman. He's very relatable, social, and that's an awesome asset to have in your corner. So, any questions? And Lori, are you familiar with what NISWA is doing?
I've been reading the articles.
Okay.
They're gonna be probably needing this grant as well, unless they can find private funding.
Yep.
Same thing.
I went to the first meeting. They have got a very large $13.5, $14 million plan. Their pickleball plan, along with a playground, is about 1.3, 1.5 million. And very, oh my gosh, it's very complicated. There's a lot of moving pieces. And it'll be interesting to see how they navigate through it, because anybody that plays pickleball, they go, that is a very far finish line for us to start fundraising. So they do need you. They do need you. They definitely. And Joe, I assume maybe you've talked to them about how they created their master plan, because this is a big deal. They've got it all laid out for hockey rinks, roof over the hockey rink, coolers, pavilion, and that type of thing. It's going to be a big deal. So, Gail, you had a question?
Yeah, I just wondered, we just have courts right now. I see that if we're going to have tournaments and things like that, are stands necessary? Is shaded areas necessary? You know?
Well, I play. Ken, have you played any of the Cross Lake tournaments?
Yeah.
Okay, so both Ken and I played there. I think I played in the first one. And it's interesting, it's not so, it is getting to be a bigger and bigger spectator sport. If you watch the pros when they played 5 years ago, and now you watch the pro tournaments, MLP, Major League tournaments and that, it is interesting to see how the viewership has increased big time. Cross Lake has got, I think, a seating area for 40 people. Everybody stands around, they want to be close, they want to hear the ball, they want to hear the grunts, they want to hear the noise, they want to hear the officials, they want to be there, they don't want to be back 30 or 40 feet. So for tournaments, really, it's participating. That's going to be the biggest thing. And you've got players coming and going. You know, if you have 6 courts or 8 courts, whatever it might be, the people in attendance are generally going to be players, spouses, close friends, and maybe a few family members, and those that are just really getting into pickleball, that want to see quality play and try and pick up some of the nuances on how to improve their game. But you can hold a tournament without a big, set of stands and seats. And in my opinion, would you agree with that, Ken?
I agree with that.
But at
Yeah.
minimum, leave some space around the courts.
Cross Lake added those.
Yeah.
Yeah, shade is always good
Yeah.
Yeah.
to have around for.
But leave a little around the courts rather than just boxing it in with everything else.
Yeah.
Okay,
So,
that's all I had. I guess for Dave, just we want to make sure I'm glad you're here because we were concerned that we would, we want to make sure we're going to help each other's business and not step on your feet. Okay. Because that was a concern we would have brought up.
Can I address this?
Yes,
Can-
please.
and
Yes.
Ken can corroborate this. Pickleball is very interesting in that there are no courts in the area. No courts in the area that you can reserve a court, especially in the wintertime. And if I understand it, you're going to put in 4 or 6 courts next to your restaurant? Possibly, okay. And 4 or 6 indoor courts. And there's a court reservation system that is flawless, that would serve you. And every outdoor court would be a feeder egress to what? To that.
Yeah.
And that is what is missing in this whole upper Central Lakes area.
So it's symbiotic.
It would be, yes, it'd be very,
Good.
very healthy.
Okay,
very
we just
healthy.
wanted to make sure of that, because I
And-
did talk to the mayor, and he said they're putting in their courts, and we don't want to, we're already going to have courts there, and I
Yeah.
said, well, we're not sure if they're putting it
Oh,
in
no.
for sure, but they're also going to be a fee, always. They won't
Yep.
be available for
Yep.
free, and they'll be indoors, and that's outdoor, so it's 2 different things, and hopefully we would. I thought we would be helping each other out, but
Definitely.
I just want to make sure, and I'm so glad that you came.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
Yeah, yep, so.
so good
Thank
to
you.
know. Thank you.
The last thing I'll say, I wrote an article for Lake Country Journal, and so it's on pickleball, the pickleball appeal. And, I wrote it with the idea that communities and nonprofits, people that are doing the fundraising, they would be able to use that as kind of a gateway for having a conversation and/or leave behind material. And so it's the last edition of the Lake Country Journal. I brought one, and I don't know if there's any way that I can link to the article, but I do have the last draft that I wrote for them that I can email, I can send out to anybody, and if that would be helpful in you moving forward,
What's on the cover of that magazine?
well, let me show you.
I got about 5.
Is it the March, April?
Oh.
It is, okay. So our garden should be in there too. Our garden should be in that one.
And our
Okay.
garden is in there.
Our garden article should be in there, and I haven't seen it yet, so I'm excited. Yeah, our community garden, which we're opening shortly. Thank you very much. All right, staff reports, moving on.
I included a brief memo. There's a lot going up for tax forfeit auction. I highlighted all the city-owned properties around the city campus in green. It has the blue, it's the one that has the blue perimeter. That would be close, as you can see, that's kind of where the future park area, that's what the previous park committees worked on for a number of years. So Jerry brought it to my attention.
It fits with our campus idea.
Yep,
Yes, this is exactly what we were hoping and in our timing.
And it's in our master plan to continue to acquire, so.
Exactly.
I don't see this as,
It's one of our items, so
yeah, it's a
Should we want a
priority.
motion to,
yeah.
okay,
I'll make a motion.
I would,
I would motion to,
okay.
for a recommendation to go to the
Okay,
council.
I'll make the motion that we try to acquire that tax forfeit lot as presented here before it goes up on auction, and recommend that council, council has to approve it, recommended council to,
Jerry.
They've changed how they do the whole thing. That lot is on the auction today.
oh, so it could be sold right now?
No, that auction is open from now through April 8th.
Oh,
So whoever's the high bidder on April 8th will get that piece of property. If in fact there are no bidders for that piece of property on April 8th, then it goes to another pot of land that can be bought over the counter at a later date. But they do have some minimum values that they have on there, on that land. process that they used to use 2 years ago has been thrown out. And this is a whole new process that is approved by the state of Minnesota.
So,
The auction is open from now till April 8th.
so does the council need to purchase it? Bid against the public?
I believe that's what's gonna happen.
Is there any way that we could get a value?
What, do you know the
An
value?
estimated,
$4,800.
okay.
So what do we need, we need to recommend council on?
An amount?
Submitting a
Our next
bid.
meeting?
To try to acquire it, yeah.
Okay.
Do we need,
Don't say before the auction is in process.
Okay.
As we speak.
I thought it was already like beyond that and up for.
No, the process that they used to use 2 years ago was deemed wrong by the state of Minnesota.
Like where we could try to like reserve one for the city?
Yes, they used to call it conservation and non-conservation.
Yeah.
They don't do that anymore.
It first has to go public before the,
Once they determine that that the time is up they have to wait a certain amount of time to
yeah.
get back on the road. Almost done, Ally. Then they put it on the auction and it has to go through the auction.
Okay.
so would it be wiser to do a motion to request that city council
Ask the city council to try and
acquire that piece?
Okay.
Actively try.
Active, yeah.
Okay,
and
I'll
do-
make the motion asking the city council to try to acquire that lot.
As
Do
soon as
we put
possible.
a dollar amount in it, or that's up to them?
That's up to the
That's
city
up to
council.
them.
Okay.
And we have to say before April 8th. So
By
they know
April
there's-
8th, yeah.
By April 8th.
Yeah.
Yes, so let's include that date so that they know there's urgency.
Yeah.
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 Wait,
But they
Jer-
might-
Jerry, do they wait till the
The day
end and
before.
then see who made the highest offer, or do they take the first offer?
No, the last day.
The highest.
April 8th is.
Highest
they'll
offer.
determine who's gonna get it.
Ugh.
Okay. So it's like a silent auction up till then?
Yeah, you could throw in a bid today of $100 and somebody came along on April 8th and bid $200 and they would be deemed the highest bidder at the time. That may not meet their minimum criteria,
Oh,
so
okay.
it may not be sold.
Jerry, I have a quick question. Our next city council meeting is April 7th.
Yeah,
So is that enough time for the city council to move on that?
sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Meeting's the next day.
Yeah, I know. I just didn't know if the hours and how quick
That's
that
going to
can
be,
turn around.
that's pretty
so
tight
be
turnaround
close,
for the
but-
council.
All right.
I would second.
Okay. Second, any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Done. Excellent. That's a nice surprise.
Thank you.
Great.
What I should also tell you is that the two lots that were being donated.
Yes.
Because those properties never went through probate, there is a long timeline of hoops that have to happen before they can even make that donation. So, but our attorney is helping them go through.
Right,
what
okay.
Some of those necessary hoops are, but that's gonna take some time.
Is time meaning 10 years, 5 years, 2 years? Do you have any idea?
I'm thinking 12 months.
A year, okay,
I'm not,
okay.
In your lifetime.
Okay, I mean, hey, hoops, who knows how long that can mean, yeah. Okay, so that's good to know, because then we'll take that in consideration when we're looking at what we want to put on, in the master plan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Joe, did
All
you
right,
have any?
good information.
Did you have any?
We're starting up work on wrapping up water supply. Spigots are going in on the community garden. The irrigation pieces are going in because it's above ground. Frost is exceptionally deep this year. And I've been hearing reports of up to 6 feet, so. And then I'm gonna be setting
No
up a
snow.
meeting with High Tech, Andy Pickar, to figure out how the water will be supplied. We have a rough idea, we know it's possible, but we need to get something concrete in concert with City Hall, because the well's drilled. The plumbing isn't in, but we need to work together, so I'm gonna be doing that tomorrow, and that's all I have.
About signs, are we looking at next month to look over some
If I have
pricing?
time.
Okay.
I do have the plot signs ordered. I mean, everything we need to make it work is secured or getting secured. The ACE folks it sounds like they're willing to donate garden hoses, tools. George Wells talked to me on Saturday when I was getting bait, so, George and Aaron. Aaron is the general manager, so that's just working informally with them right now, so. And then, yeah, everything else is looking pretty good, I think. Hopefully the weather holds and we shouldn't have any problems. I think over half of the gardens reserved, well over half.
My question.
All the raised gardens are full. Except the 17-inch.
get yours?
There's a couple of those open.
Couple 17?
Okay.
Yep. And then over half of the in-ground are open, so
Awesome.
I wouldn't be surprised if the whole thing fills out once people come back in May. So,
So exciting,
Yeah, it is.
so exciting. That's great. Great news. All right. Committee member reports.
I'd like to make a couple comments. Having gone through a less than wonderful experience with the disc golf, and being accused of doing stuff in secret, not having public input, I'd like to figure out a way to have maybe at a parks meeting where we advertise, anybody who's interested in pickleball, come and show up and make comment. If you're opposed to pickleball, come up and make your comments. But I'd like to see that on the record, and I want to have something happen that prevents the mess we had.
For sure.
Although it was
Agree,
in
yes.
progress for years, and it was no secret.
Right.
No one sought out information, so it wasn't really our fault, but I'd like to do it with a little more splash out there to
Publicity.
get more opinions.
Public
because
notice in the paper, things like that.
So far, we've had
Letters to
two
the,
people. I have not had anybody, or we have not had people come in at previous parks meetings begging for pickleball. We've had two, albeit very enthusiastic people, but we don't know for sure
Right.
this community. I don't mean people coming from Cross Lake to use our courts, which I don't care, but I want to know is people that live here, that pay taxes here, are interested in this.
Well, I
Cover-
can answer that a little bit, because everybody that I've mentioned say, what are you working on the Parks Committee? And I say, well, this is our next, idea, and they're thrilled.
They may
Very-
be, Dan, but remember when Bill would bring us all these surveys? I surveyed people, and 5 people told me this. And we were like, who are the people? Where are they from? We didn't put a lot of credibility in that. So I want them here.
I've had positive
Voicing-
responses so far.
Bring those people. I want to hear it. I don't want that kind of criticism we had before.
and that is
If we did-
required for the DNR grants anyway, as she
yeah.
said, and we're definitely not going to make that mistake.
No.
No, but we're also
We're gonna-
not to that point yet.
Yes, we're not.
Here's the thing that I'm thinking of, though, is you have these meetings in Splash. Yeah, you might get 1 or 2 negative, but we might get some people that come that say, hey, I'm all in and I want to give money.
Yeah.
Like that, because this could turn into a very positive thing. And after, I'll be honest, I'm new. I listened to the board
yeah.
meeting. I don't want to hear that. And all we need to do is just do that up front and,
Transparent.
yeah.
Well, we
Yeah.
just need to learn, we were being transparent as we, I mean,
It was not a
knew
secret.
how to be or whatever. It was always public, it was always things posted, but we've now learned, and we know that we need to be more proactive in getting the involvement sooner. Like Deanne said, we're not there right now, but soon.
soon.
Yeah,
Yeah.
very soon, and
And there are some
Jerry.
houses that are over, around, we need to send letters out to.
Only
you know.
because the lady reaffirmed something that I told you last month. I think once you have this pretty picture, you can put that all over the place, and you can sell that. And you can use that to say, when Joe Blow comes in here and says, well, I'm not for pickleball, but I want another Little League park or something like that.
Bocce court.
You can say, that's part of the master plan, this is what we're working on today, but that's coming for the future. You can use that as a tool to sell what you're doing.
Exactly.
And I can't express to you how valuable that will be, but I think that's probably the first thing you should be thinking about doing.
So are you like I don't know your background, I'm sorry that I don't know more about. Are you like capable of doing this master layout of all
I am not.
possible things we might want?
I'm not. I'm a retired city administrator.
Okay.
I'm a big picture person. I've dealt with a lot of grants in my time. They all come with some strings. They all come with extra costs. You've got to be aware of that. It's not all free money.
Right.
But the better job you can do, the better chance you have of being competitive. That whole grant realm is competitive. There are other folks that are asking for the same things. The better job you do, the better chance you got. But you really have to look at hiring a professional.
So do we tell you that now?
Pardon?
Do we tell you that now? Do we ask council? What is the first step?
Well, I think, number one, I think you gotta figure out what you wanna do. And I believe the first step is to.
We need a workshop. Is what it sounds like to me. We need a workshop.
Like,
Yeah.
and
like
is
mapping,
that-
mapping the area and say, here we want this and here we want that.
Is that a point to request?
Wait,
Woodson?
I don't.
one at a time.
I don't anticipate anybody spending the amount of money that Cross Lake and Nisswa did on the
No.
plan.
Right.
That said, take a look at what they've done, and I think you can get an idea of some of the minimums that you have to do. Theirs is pretty glossy stuff.
Can you
Yeah.
get us some of that information?
You can go right on their websites and
Is it
look.
on their
Right
website?
on their websites. Yep, I've been looking at this one. Okay.
I'm wondering if this is a wise time then, if we're wanting to look at the bigger picture and to get a Widseth person, and maybe it's not that person, I don't know, but like to get somebody at the table that has the skills to,
I think in my mind, you mentioned workshop. I think some time to sit down with our master plan with a map of our city property and us brainstorming and discussing where do we see this being and roughly draw it out.
Right.
Then we go to Woodseth or wherever and say, we need something pretty with this, you know?
Precise.
And
And maybe we
But we
also look
can't
at the
just go to-
person that
I
she
mean-
recommended as well, and we talked to both of them.
you were just not just handing them land and saying, what should we do with this? We have an idea in mind. We've worked on that. So we need to put that together
Right.
unofficially, informally to start. And then,
I agree with that, Dan.
then we go and take the next step and spend the money to get it into a working.
Do we have an input meeting before we spend money?
The workshop.
We show what we're thinking in case we want to modify that.
Well, we did have a meeting about our master plan.
Yes.
And pickleball was included in that master plan.
I'm talking about the public meeting.
Yes, it was a public meeting.
Oh, okay.
We had a public meeting to say this is our master parks plan.
Poorly
And that
attended
was,
meeting.
yeah, it was not well attended. But we publicized it, we offered it, and we had to do that before our plan could be approved. So that's within the last year and a half.
Hadn't been updated for a
Yeah.
long time, so we did a lot of work
Yeah.
to get that up.
Do you recall, was when you had that meeting, did you send notice to everyone, or was it just like a electronic?
We didn't mail it, no.
Because that, to address Jody's issue or question, I know sometimes in planning and zoning, when we have like a variance or something, you send out targeted to adjoining
That
property
area.
owners.
Yeah,
Right.
and
What I
that
meant,
makes
yeah.
sense, but
Yep.
That could be, because, I mean, you've heard everything good right now.
Right.
The folks right along the lake right there
May not.
Might not think it's so
are
great.
the people you want to
Those
hear
will be
from.
the same ones that they're hearing still from on the disc golf. So we have to send
Yes.
out a notice to the people on the perimeter of our property, so for sure.
can
And
we
it's
get
North
a-
Lakeview Drive. How to figure that out, I don't know. That's just from learning from what Diane said from our last projects.
Yep.
yeah,
That's where I'd anticipate you're gonna get, if you get pushback, that's where I'd expect.
We
So,
maybe set a workshop, just let us do some.
Yep.
I don't think it needs to be I mean, people are always welcome. It's always public.
Well, in some of those projects, we notified a specific area, but we also published that as a public notice.
It's always.
And anybody can.
And can come.
That being said, not everybody reads the paper and
Right.
yada, yada, yada. It's,
Yeah.
You try to do your damnedest to get to as most folks as you can. But they have some responsibility too,
Right.
to be informed and to seek some information. I think maybe a newspaper article about the fact that you're working on a master plan for the parks, and that includes pickleball and whatever it includes, I think that would go a long ways to help you
Get that going.
get
Yes.
these people and their input.
How do we get a newspaper person here?
Do we need to do that
submit it.
informal master drawing before we
I
say
feel like
this
we
is
need
what-
to come to consensus
I
before
think we need
start.
to have that
Yeah.
first, and then we
Yes.
could do a
And then we
public
could
meeting.
do- And we can do that newspaper article at that time.
Yeah, I think those are good for the good steps.
And I know the city did a survey a while back. Is there anything that we can glean from that related to pickleball, or do we know? Recreational?
I wouldn't put a whole lot of weight in surveys.
Okay.
My experience with surveys is, until something pops up, that's when the people that you'll want to deal with, that's when they're going to pay attention.
For sure.
Not to say they don't count, they help you look in a direction, but as you get closer to, be it a road project, a park, whatever, when it comes to digging up the road, cutting down trees, that's when you find, and you always get pushback. There's two sides to everything,
Always.
everything.
Always.
Sure.
And-
Never going to please everyone.
Yep,
So
Very well.
so.
shall we pick a date? Now, do we want to do it on a separate date from our meeting, prior to a meeting? How would you guys like to think about that?
Or after the meeting?
It might get late, I don't know.
I'm good with whatever.
Okay,
I'll make it a priority.
Yeah, like how long do you think? Couple hours is what you're thinking? Yeah, I'd probably get a
Yep,
little
so we
late
can go
then.
back and forth. So I don't know if people can come earlier, or if we just do a separate day.
I think you should do it separate, Dave.
Okay.
That doesn't give you, you don't have time constraints then when you do that.
Okay.
Set yourself up for an hour and a half and
Go from there.
just deal with that and only that.
Yeah, that's a good thing.
I'm not telling you
Would
what
you
to
like-
do.
But it's a good idea.
thinking
No, I
I
think
Got an
agree.
idea?
I'm good with a different day.
Before our next meeting?
Yeah.
so that,
One thing I'd recommend, North Lakeview's kind of seasonal. A lot of it's very seasonal.
so we would want to
Residences are,
plan the open
Summer folks.
session into May, but that doesn't mean we can't meet
We
before
could meet,
then.
Yes,
we can
definitely.
get going, yeah.
So the,
You'd get more response during the open water season,
And I think
would
for this
expect.
first one, our workshop, it's not, I mean, not that people can't give input, but it's for us to get our
Yes, we
Right.
need
feet
to
under
get
us.
things
We need to
together.
have-
It would be
yes.
like, we can't be nailed down on anything until we have some idea of what kind of direction we want to go.
be able to answer the questions.
Do you like
when-
Thursdays?
Tuesdays and Thursdays work best for
Okay.
me in evenings, but I don't know, Deanne, I know the spring is always,
No,
First, second, and third Thursday, well, this is the second, but I can't do the first or third.
So the 4th, so March, that would be March 27th.
I'm gone that week.
spring break, yeah, out of state.
Yeah.
Tuesdays,
We could go April Fool's Day,
That first week in April works for me.
same for me.
Are we looking at Tuesday then?
Tuesdays, yep. I could do, well, like 5 o'clock works for everyone? Yep.
Yeah, I need to double
Does
check
that
my
work
work
for the,
calendar. That's
for
not on here,
here,
but
the room and whatnot?
What day is she picking?
That'd be great.
What day are we looking at?
It's a
Gail?
Tuesday, April 1st at 5 o'clock.
April 1st?
Oh, April Fool's Day, okay.
Yep.
I need
Well,
to
I'll
Unless you
my
got
granddaughter.
plans to be pranking
right?
people all day.
She'll be, I'm babysitting her.
That's a good start. All right.
Good with that? I'll hold
So
it.
everyone should kind of think of ideas, maybe review the master plan, and then maybe look at plussing and minusing what, we may have changed our mind on some things since
And
then,
we're gonna
or
need-
want to
need
add
a
some things.
map. We're
Yeah,
gonna
we'll
need
have to
that
map.
like
Yeah, we
the
can-
shape of the area we're talking about.
That works for me.
Works for me too.
Yeah.
Would that be better?
April 1st?
Or
I
the
will have
third?
to check my
Second would
work
be a
email.
Wednesday.
It's not
A
on
Wednesday.
The
my
second.
calendar.
I would be okay too.
So I've written,
Yeah, I think either. She's gonna send something
So,
out.
Can you put both date options and,
Yeah.
Yeah, we would actually go out
Send
and
some
walk,
out with
right?
both
You would go
dates
out
and then we
there
can
too.
pick.
oh,
I think
okay.
we should go out there and
That's what I
walk
would
through
like to
there,
do. And
yes.
then we can come back and talk. I need to, like,
Well, it would be nice if we had the map.
how about just the big one that we have had?
Yeah,
And that-
I still don't have a great perspective, like if we could put a couple more landmarks on there. And then maybe walk through with the map.
I'd like that.
If they have the time. I mean,
Yeah, he had
It's a
printed a
busy-
big map for us previously. We did that kind of, well, it was bigger than this, but,
yeah, when we were highlighting the.
yeah.
Yeah.
Where we had the pickleball courts with that little piece of paper we had.
We were looking at the pavilion placement too.
The pavilion, yep. And since the pavilion's still kind of floating around and might have to maybe give some input on
Yeah,
where, because
for the
that
next-
probably is changing now if we are going to do pickleball.
Yeah.
We can't just plop it back there by basketball if that might be where
The foundation's already poured,
it's what?
poured.
Foundation is.
Yeah, that was
forward.
already decided last fall.
Oh, okay. So we do have that.
We'll have to work
That'll
around
be-
it.
It's in hard concrete.
I thought it was
For
just
that
sitting there.
area what you were talking about, I'll investigate if I can find the 4 outermost property corners. Can't guarantee the pins are there, but for visual reference, that'd be pretty helpful.
So should we start with walking? I think, so we have an actual really good idea.
Yeah,
Start
I
with
would
walking
strongly
through?
encourage it. 'cause
Yeah.
that
Let's do that
topography-
first. And if you can get out there on your own and walk around more too, and spend the time and then come with questions, that would be good.
I will let the committee know if we get it located, or when we do.
Okay.
I mean, we should be able to find them, but as the community garden indicated, I mean, we found the property pin
Yeah.
that a dozer picked up and slid down, and it cost $2,000 to find it officially, so. But we're pretty good at finding them. I suspect they'll be there that will be close enough to give you a pretty good idea.
Thank you.
Because the whole site will basically, that I propose, that we're talking about, is in that one lump of just north of our storage building. It's that one clump of lots. So if we get those four corners, that would fit
So is
what
it
you're
just
talking
south
about.
of where we have the pavilion?
No, it's northeast.
So Deb, would it be possible to pull from our master plan the pages for the city park and just have that included for that meeting? Yeah,
Yes.
from our master plan for the workshop. Yep, so then we just have that to review and have that with, available. Anything else? Okay. That sounds like a great plan. Kim had something on committee reports.
Yeah, I did talk to some people like at Sourcewell and other like grant people that I know that write grants, and they did say you could also include a grant writer as an administrative expense in your grant if you don't get the third-party grant from Sourcewell. So the caveat to that, of course, is they wouldn't get paid unless you get the grant. So, I think that's kind of the dance right now is like how much does she do before we officially get funding? Or is that something we just agree to fund ahead of time and anticipate getting the grant?
I do think that we still have options too, because
Yeah.
I think it's behoove of us to compare
Yep,
to what
yep.
Woodseth has, there's nothing, I love her passion and her connection here, but we also have to use our tax dollars the wisest.
Wisely,
and-
yep.
I believe this would cost Pequot approximately $14,000 to $20,000.
From who?
Would Seth. And don't quote me on it, it was just a phone discussion, but Gail, because their writer, her name is Gail Levinson, and she didn't pull up a specific quote, but that's what this packet of information cost Pequot, I believe.
Well, I got her
Chunk of
name from 50 Lakes, and they had agreed to share that information with us on what the cost of their courts was, so I shared all that with Joe. And then they told me about the grant writer, and that for their project, and they did a water park, they did a splash pad, and sidewalks and whatnot too, and now they're doing 2 more pickleball courts, because they only did 2, and so they're short on them. So 50 Lakes itself even has pickleball courts, and it had to go back for more. But that cost them $6,000 or $7,000, between 6 and 7, to write that grant, and they got that covered.
I'm
So,
curious.
just so you know, that's a
another thing,
range
They had
of things.
mentioned Essentia and Brainerd, and it made me think of
Thinking
CRMC
of
here being in
Cuyuna.
Breezy. I don't know if anybody has any connections there or who to reach out to, but I think that could be a possible
A health
I was thinking
sort
the
of help.
same thing, yeah.
We've got the Crosby Clinic.
CRMC, yeah.
And,
We don't have
the
an
thing
Essentia
is
connection,
if
but
we
we
can
got a
get
Crosby one.
these people,
At CRM.
because that's the key to these guys, is getting those people who are willing to create a 501(c) to fundraise, because we don't have any mechanism for it otherwise. And that was really frustrating for us with the garden, trying to come up with things like for that. And I think we just don't have the Lions, we don't have businesses, that are a street of businesses that we can go to or things like that. So we have to find groups that are interested, and that's why I'm with Ken and Eric, if we can talk to Dick and Sherry Burns and see if they are, how far they would be willing to go with this, because we need the enthusiasts and the people playing, like you say,
Yeah.
in the area.
Yeah, they're enthusiastic, and he said they raised all this money, but he didn't say they did anything other than ask people for money.
Yeah.
He didn't say, we had a spaghetti dinner, or we had a whatever. They just must ask people, and people.
Well, they had a few
Give
big donors, but they did raise money through different things. So
What-
we'll have to,
but when
we
you
should
were
have
trying
asked
to
him the
ask
question.
He never answered that. He didn't say we had a
I
raffle.
can go back to them and ask.
We had anything,
I can go back.
And, it is an option for places like where I work, although we tend to not fund like project, but people can like go to like, what's the one in Brainerd? Anyway, they host funds, and project funds is one of them. And then like for the Initiative Foundation, we host the funds, so they don't have to have a 501(c)(3). They just need an advisory team that fundraises. So creating a project fund those guys obviously would be, have to do that, not us. But that would keep all of that, like applying for the 501c3 and all of that stuff kind of out of that picture. But yeah,
Would you be willing to take point
sure.
on that
Yeah,
part?
yeah, yeah.
And then
Yeah.
contact them?
Yep.
I can get their info?
yes, yep.
Ken?
If they'd be willing to be advisors, on a project
Ken and
fund, then they can
Cammie
just
might
start
be
raising
too.
money.
Yeah.
I don't need
Okay,
any.
we'll pursue that part
Okay.
then, and Kim can take the lead on that.
That's what yep.
All right, excellent. Excellent.
Would do.
Great meeting, you guys.
Excellent.
Anybody else have anything? All right, motion to adjourn? All in favor?
I'll make the motion to adjourn.
I can second that.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And opposed? Great, thank you, guys.